Dr. Julie Fresh.
All right, I'm so excited.
We get to learn a lot about your brain and what you can do to make it healthier.
So we get to look at your brain today.
Yay.
Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous just because I don't know what we're going to find. I don't know if it's going to be like crazy groundbreaking or just normal or, you know, I guess it's all normal.
Well, you never know until you take a look.
Exactly.
Right? So, you know, I want to state your goal. I like to state the goal out front. You know, you stated your goal was to check in on your overall brain health and to take steps towards improving it.
Yes.
I love that goal. I think that is absolutely achievable here. So
awesome.
In your line of work, there are some definite risks to your brain. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a parkour and freerunning athlete and a stuntwoman. With the parkour and freerunning, I've had some issues where I've fallen on my head before, and I have a scar on my forehead because I smacked my head doing a flip into a foam pit with a metal bar nearby, and I just didn't like pay attention the bar was there. But that's just one of those freak accidents. I like thought I was being safe. I was warming up in the foam pit and all that, and then the other one that was very concerning to me was I fell backwards off a ledge. I tripped and fell on my head, falling 5 feet.
Cool.
Yeah, so with stunts, of course we try and make it as safe as possible, but there's always things that can go wrong, and sometimes you do something over and over and over, and you've got to feel it eventually. And those are kind of the things that led me to be slightly concerned, just knowing that I've hit my head a few times, and I know that that's just not good for you.
Like you said, those little head bonks, like over time, can actually have a cumulative detriment on your brain. Even if you don't get hospitalized, even if you don't get diagnosed with a concussion, it can actually have long-lasting impacts. So this is why I love that we're going to look at your brain and see if there have been any lasting impacts. Is there anything that you've noticed, you know, over the course of time? Have you felt like your brain is working as well as it always has? Have you noticed any changes?
I remember after the most recent, the scar that I got, I remember a week later I was picking up my fiance from the airport, and we were trying to find my car that I couldn't remember where I parked. And that's typical, like very typical of me to just completely forget where I parked my car or where I put my keys and stuff. And that used to be like a disorganization thing when I was a kid, and now I've gotten more organized, and I feel like it's just a forgetfulness thing, and I have to constantly be writing things down that I'm going to do, otherwise I will forget it.
So let's look at some brain scans.
Okay.
The first one we're going to look at is actually not your brain, but a healthy example. And I just want to show you what we're looking at here. On this set of scans, color does not matter. Color is on there to show shape and contour. So whether it's blue, pink, purple, green, that doesn't matter. What we're looking for is continuity of the surface. And when we look, we're going to put yours next to that one side by side. And if we see any dents or holes where there should not be dents or holes, that means there's a reduction of blood flow in that area. So now this is a functional medicine scan. So if we look at our brain, right, functional is not structural. Structural would be like a CT or an MRI, which is actually looking at the spongy material of the brain. A functional scan, which is a SPECT scan, is looking at the blood flow through that structure. So you can have good integrity of the structure, but if you don't have good blood flow through that structure, then it can actually negatively affect your blood flow. Okay, let's do this. Let's put yours next to the healthy example for comparison's sake. And if you wanna, if you wanna stand up and just like take a quick look, I wanna kind of show you what we see.
Yeah, there's some holes there, huh?
There's a couple holes. Yeah, a little bit. So healthy example for a female your age range, because it does change by age. We get a little bit of less blood flow naturally to the cortex as we age. So holes, where do you see them?
Right there.
Right there.
That's a big one.
This is the prefrontal cortex.
So what does that control?
Focus, planning, organization. Focus and concentration are huge. And this is really this area, this whole prefrontal cortex. When this is low, we tend to see ADD or ADHD.
Okay.
And this again, if you see a hole, doesn't mean there's an actual hole in your brain. It means there's a reduction by 40% or more, which is significant. And this is a concentration scan. So this is where we want to see best blood flow to that part of your brain. And this is a parietal lobe, and behind that is the occipital lobe. You can see there's a little bit of a reduction in the occipital lobe as well.
Okay.
So, and then you have a little bit of a reduction in the temporal lobes. Now, all of these are all sort of mild to moderate reductions, but they are potentially significant.
Mm-hmm.
So temporal lobes are here. Temporal lobes are really susceptible to head injuries because the temporal lobe sticks out down here. And even in like a whiplash or a big head bonk, there's a little bony ridge that surrounds the temporal lobe, and the temporal lobe can get pulled across that bony ridge and cause a reduction of blood flow.
Okay.
This does look like you've had head injuries that have not healed
Okay.
and that are likely having an impact. And one reason why this is more concerning is because future head injuries can, again, worsen these. We don't get a timestamp on these, so I can't say this happened when you were, 15 or it happened last week. But we do know that there's evidence of head injury or head injuries that have occurred.
Well, this one feels like where it's at, since you're looking at it from like there, that makes sense that it's right where my scar is, right? Like.
Yeah, actually, it is right where your scar is.
Makes sense.
Absolutely, that does make sense.
That was a hard hit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we can see it for sure. So it does look like there has been one or more head injuries that haven't healed all the way. The other thing to notice is you have something which is called mild scalloping, which means if you look from the top down or even from the side view, there's a little bit more overall lumpy bumpiness on the surface, which means that there's a little bit of reduction overall to the cortex.
Okay.
This is interesting because I'm not sure what's causing that. It's a little more than we would expect for your age.
Okay.
It can happen for a number of reasons. It can be caused by toxicity. So for example, say someone lives in a really polluted area, people who are using alcohol or drugs. This is one reason why I was also asking you about whether or not you might have some anemia.
Oh.
Because anemia reduces oxygen in the blood, which reduces oxygen in the brain, and it can actually cause a little bit of scalloping.
Interesting.
It might be worth checking
Yeah.
just to see if that's playing a role. Head injuries can actually affect the hormones in ways that are more subtle, and people may not know that they have, a subtly lower thyroid or sex hormone level that's actually affecting cognition.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's really good news here, which is that we can work to help bring more blood flow back to these areas. There's no signs of cortical atrophy that we saw on your brain scan. That's good.
Mhm.
That means that the injury wasn't severe enough to damage the tissue itself, but just enough to reduce that blood flow to the tissue. So we can, part of my recommendations for you are going to be to help bring more blood flow and healing back to these areas so they'll function better.
Okay.
This is looking at the deeper tissue. So the first set of scans was looking at the cortex, or the outer layer, and this is looking at the inner part of the brain.
Okay.
On this set of scans, color does matter. So now we're looking at color as an indicator of blood flow.
Mhm.
Blue is relatively low blood flow, red is moderate, and white is high blood flow. So you can see there's the most blood flow we expect is back here in the cerebellum.
Okay.
And cerebellum is this part of the brain. It is really important to so many functions in the brain, very densely packed with neurons. It helps the prefrontal cortex with a lot of those tasks, focus and concentration tasks. And it also helps different parts of the brain communicate with one another. Helps to coordinate movement, even like while we're standing and sitting here relaxed, it's helping us to stay upright and coordinate our movement.
Okay.
So even at rest, we expect a lot of activity there.
Makes sense.
So let's look at yours.
Oh.
Here's yours.
Okay. What does it mean?
So I want to tell you that your this scan for you is actually really healthy.
Okay, good.
Yeah, honestly, this is one of the healthier ones I've seen this year, to be honest. And I think it's reflected in the fact that you don't have a lot of anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
Your mood is really stable. You take really good care of your mental health with your daily journaling.
Mhm.
Love that. You do have a little bit of extra activity here in the thalamus,
Okay.
which is the center of the stress response system. Just a little bit of extra activation, but not through the roof. And then these two here are basal ganglia. Basal ganglia are a little bit bright, And those can make you more prone to anxiety. You have a little bit of low-level anxiety that sounds like you've learned how to really manage well.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you is a little bit of low-level activation here, without white, but just a little bit of red or moderate activation, can help with inner motivation. And you've mentioned that you have a really strong inner motivation. So I really think these areas are not areas that we need to quiet down. I think that they're serving you well.
I think so too, yeah. Cool, yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, I'm super pleased with this. Overall, this is a very healthy inner brain scan.
That's great. That makes me really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think what we can do really is focus on improving the blood flow to the cortex and healing those past injuries.
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
So let's talk about how we're going to heal your brain. So your nutrition is really good. My only concern is that we want to check on the anemia.
Okay.
Just make sure, screen for anemia, screen for any thyroid insufficiency. Just because the little bit of scalloping that we see there, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me from your history. So let's see if we can figure out what might be causing that. And then as far as a supplement, I would like to recommend a few supplements for you.
Okay.
So I would say there's going to be 3 things I'm going to recommend. One is a high quality, high potency multivitamin.
Okay.
2 is a high quality, high potency fish oil.
Okay.
And the fish oil is going to be really, really helpful to bring more blood flow to the surface.
All right.
And then the third one is going to be some brain directed nutrients, really send that good nutrition to the brain where we want it to help support the healing process. And we know that over the course of about 6 months, significant improvement on the brain scans with that approach.
Sounds good.
The last but not least thing that I would suggest to you that I think could be potentially really helpful is going to be considering hyperbaric oxygen therapy. There's more than 70 studies showing that hyperbaric oxygen therapy can help the brain heal. So it appears kind of like it helps a wound heal, like if you have a wound that isn't healing, the FDA has approved hyperbaric oxygen therapy to help stimulate the cells to heal around that wound, and it'll heal with therapy. It seems to work the same way for the brain. It helps to stimulate that healing process in the brain. And I think this can be really good for you, especially because you've been doing a lot of the right things like nutrition, exercise, yet we still have some evidence of the brain that hasn't completely healed from past injuries.
Yeah.
So that I do feel like that hyperbaric oxygen can really give you that extra boost and really help stimulate that healing process there.
Okay.
I think we're going to get your brain healthier. I think it's going to help with memory. You know, the temporal lobe's really important for memory formation, and especially long-term memory, and yours are a little bit low. Again, that's a sign of injury. I think that you have really developed some good skills to not let the ADD or ADHD get in your way. But I do think that as we help this heal, it's going to be less problematic for you. Easier for you to focus, concentrate, losing your car a little less easily in the parking lot, etc.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I do think this is a really good, both like sort of for you, sort of a dual approach to help your brain heal from past injuries. And I think when these supplements are on board, you know, any future minor head injuries, because you're going to really protect yourself from major head injuries, any minor head injuries won't have a chance. They're going to heal quickly.
Sounds good. Honestly, I think this information is so valuable for me to know because it helps me understand like why I've been having the issues that I have, and that I'm not just crazy. It's just like there's a whole reason for it, and the fact that it's healthier than I thought maybe is good, and I can definitely take some steps to make it better. It makes me feel really confident in the journey with that, and I'm excited to try it out.
Nice. Yeah, I think you're going to be really happy with this.
Me too.